And I'm live with Miller the Elder.
Hey.
Right. I'm going to be discussing H-Lots. Well, we know it's H-Lot. We know what it is. It's on the title. Although at the moment the title is Good Opening Scene.
This is Homicide Season 3, Episode 5, titled The Last of the Watermen, written by Henry Brummel and Tom Fontana, and directed by Richard Pierce. So what happens in this episode is Felton and Howard take a call, and except when they're at the scene of the crime, and Howard examines the body, and it's pretty gruesome. The victim's condition, and Howard basically needs a vacation, so she takes off and goes home to where she's from on the bay, and leaves Felton to partner temporarily with Pimbleton while she's doing that.
Just one thing, I like delivery from Andre Bauer, I think his name is, when he finds out that his partner is Felton. Oh no, please.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that was true to the real life story between the characters, the real detectives that Homicide characters are based on, because Kincaid and Edgerton, the real detectives, they had a lot of those conversations are taken from their real conversations. They had kind of a rivalry, you might say, when they did stuff together. And actually, Ben had asked me before about if I'd read the book Homicide, Year on the Killing Streets, and I had not, but I've started listening to the audiobook, so I found God on Audible, so I
hopefully
started listening today.
Hopefully it's unabridged.
It's not. It actually.
Why do they always abridge them? Why?
Well, they don't always. Like most of the ones that I've gotten from that site haven't been abridged. Though most of the Doctor Who novels have been unabridged, but apparently this one, it's only available that way. But anyway, better than nothing. And anyway, so yeah, Ben mentioned a good opening scene. That opening scene has G and Munch at the laundromat.
I mean, it looks like what maybe Michael Jackson would have looked like if he'd have stayed the same shade. And not gone crazy. But I thought it was a Michael Jackson jacket.
It's another great scene, which illustrates the personalities of the two. Is
very clearly.
Munch explains the PJ difference for the audience.
And also,
about how what?
Yeah, and also like both of them, it was like, and there's that thing, the ESTJ, where it's like a very clear dividing line between work and then rest.
Yeah.
When the SI comes out.
Yeah, Munch talks about how G is better prepared than him, and how Munch's problem in life is he's not prepared. He lives for the moment, and then the problem is when the moment is over, he's unprepared for the next moment. So yes, the lament of the perceiver. Yeah, basically he wants to talk, and G doesn't want to talk. He wants to read the paper.
Yeah, he's like, I work with you all week. Go away.
Yeah. Right. And so anyway, yeah, the two main plots going in the episode, are Kay Howard's trip home to see her family and friends that she grew up with, and some stuff is going on where basically they're fishermen, they're oyster fishermen, and they're being stifled by regulations and environmental protection that's hurting their business, and the people aren't taking that real well. And one of the environmentalist guys that shows up ends up getting killed. And so even though Kay's trying to take a vacation, she ends up having to be a homicide detective even when she goes back home. So it follows that case, and it's not one that's a whodunit at all. It doesn't take very long for her first instincts on who did it were right, and it doesn't take too long to figure out who did it. And he's not exactly a professional criminal, as he
No.
very sloppy in his crime. He was drunk at the time anyway, so he's so yeah, some good family moments, where you have the stuff at the table and at the bar and stuff, and you have a little. Kay even gets a little bit of action from her ex-boyfriend from back in the day, but they've drifted apart, when she left the town. So she goes back home, and of course, while she's gone, then and Pembleton and Felton team up again and solve the case of the old lady that gets beaten up and her tongue cut out, and it's her grandson that in the latest in a line of punk criminals who doesn't really have any reason for committing the murder other than he felt like it. And there's some great Felton Pembleton moments, and probably my favorite moment is the moment where Felton talks about his viewpoint on what the difference between a killing and a murder is, and who he considers. He says if somebody is like, some criminal drug dealer dude who's a rapist, and so then basically his life is meaningless by who he is or what his actions are. Whereas Pembleton says that he believes every life has meaning. So that's another good scene where they contrast their viewpoints. So I liked that a lot. And at the end of the episode, there's also a scene where they continue their rivalry on the basketball court, which I also thought was funny, where they're playing with the kids, and then gradually the kids all take off, and it's just them playing one-on-one. And then they have another conversation in the car about sports and white guys playing basketball, black guys playing hockey, that kind of stuff. And then at the end of the episode, Kay comes back and settles back into her normal life. So that's about the gist of it.
Right, so yeah, going back to the opening scene, Munch very much showing his ENTP. I can't remember what the thing's for. What is it? What was I thinking? Was it abstract dick late? I suppose. I can't remember what the three things were in the NTP. I think it was better than that though. One of them was abstract. Right. Oh yeah. Generally in socionics theory, the ISTP and ESFP don't get on that well. And the ISTP usually has the edge on the ESFP. Right, we won't go into that. But not so much in this. Go on.
I was just going to say, I guess it depends on what the battlefield is on who would have the edge.
Yeah. I mean, just like in the first episode, Felton definitely annoyed Pembleton more than Pembleton annoyed Felton. And given that SPs sometimes like to annoy each other, I think Felton won the first episode. But this one, maybe Frank won it. Or it was a draw.
Yeah.
But the
Well,
first...
I think they leave it open for you to interpret who you think wins each moment. But
like, I remember, like, I think Felton won the first episode, and then that discussion with where he annoys him when he goes, "Why you got to call it 3 months?"
mm-hmm.
I just think that anyone who annoys Frank, you know, if you annoy an ESFP, it's like you've beaten them. If you're also, you know what I mean? Because STP they try to annoy SFPs, I think.
And so they try to annoy everybody. But the thing is I always think of the line from the movie Role Models where Jane Lynch's character says, "You can't BS a BSer." And that's the thing, is when you have SPs against each other, it's like the STP in a lot of other people, they're used to just being able to get over on them. But when it's another SP, then it's more like a competition, and they'll rise into the level of, hey, you know, I'm not your patsy here, you know. And of course, in a situation where, you know, you have a workplace, and, you know, in a case like this with cops, you know, they're kind of like trained to be on their toes anyway.
Yeah.
And so they've got that mentality of they're always sizing up suspects and everything else, and they're also sizing up each other all the time, keeping each other on their toes. So
yeah, and the SFP is in that line of work. Can rival the STPs when it comes to brains.
oh sure, and again, it's why really, you know, they work pretty well together when all's said and done, even though they might bicker with each other, because they bring different ways of looking at things, and so they can, you know, both sides can work together in what their specialties or strengths are. And so yeah, you have the funny scene where Felton is recalling what he's learned about the tongue from Frank, who reads an anatomy book, and then, you know, because his way of investigating the crime is he's trying to figure out, like, if there's some kind of message being sent with the cutting out the tongue. And meanwhile, Felton is doing his usual thing of he doesn't care what the reason was. He just get the facts and figure it out.
The how. Also, going back to Temperament again, it was a good story for that. Is that when Munch was going on about doesn't want a TV in the bar, he wants people to go there and have a read.
Yeah.
And the SPs, no, we want sport on there. And I thought that the lyrics on the music were idiotic.
I love Counting Crows. I know there's a lot of people that don't like them. They're very polarizing. But that album that song is taken from is one of my favorite albums. And if it weren't for that album, there's a good chance that my son would not exist, because it was a part of the foundation of the relationship between me and his mother. So there's some little personal history there.
Okay.
The album August and Everything After by Counting Crows, of which the song Raining in Baltimore that was played in the episode is from.
There's a good line from Daddy Howard. I never thought there was so much to do doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then at least they addressed this weird... At least they acknowledged that it was a coincidence, a convenience, that you have the scientist go to the bar where everybody hates him. And then a character then later said, you know, he's got a nerve coming to this bar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's go to a bar where everybody hates you.
Yeah.
So at least they addressed it.
Yeah, he might have been idealist type thought somehow if he went there he could soften the relationship.
Well, he never
Say,
tried.
hey, I come. Well, I mean, he did a little bit, but he just wasn't gonna. It was falling on deaf ears because he wanted to talk about, I'm from a family of watermen too. I know what this is. I'm not against you. Uh, and so he tried to make his pitch, but nobody was willing to listen.
I mean, the actor should have said to the director, "Why is my character here? Just to get
Well, he
murdered?"
says why he's there. I mean, again, he probably was a little naive in that area. He felt like, well, if I appeal to them in this way, maybe they'll listen to me. Maybe we'll have a few beers and talk about it, and maybe it won't be so bad.
Well, I think that if he'd have played it that way, but anyhow, I just thought I don't think it was played that way where he was like trying to reach out to them and explain, "Hey, if you over oyster, there won't be any oysters left."
This is an episode that I've found I actually have enjoyed more each time I've seen it. Like the first time I saw it on original broadcast when I was a teenager, I thought it was pretty boring, most of
Yeah.
that story. But when I watched it again last year with Morgan, I enjoyed it more. And then when I watched it again this time, because I feel like I sort of catch more stuff in it, each time and can appreciate the characters because it's kind of a blur. Like when she first shows up and sees her family and friends, immediately it's kind of like, okay, who's that? Who's that? It's kind of trying to identify who the characters are. And once you've seen it a few times, then it's kind of watching it again, knowing who the guy who is the murderer is. And when you first show up, you kind of see and how does he act and stuff. So there's kind of more to watch, once you know what's going on. So I thought, but I really overall I thought it fits great into the narrative of Homicide, which very much, like I have said before, always hammers home points about reality. Which listening to the book today is so heavy on the cynicism, and the show I don't even think was even half as cynical as the book was from what I've heard so far. But the show still had those things where it's like, she tries to take a vacation and what happens? There's a murder, like the first one in her hometown in 6 or 7 years, and it happens when she's there. So it's like, again, Homicide going, you can't get away from reality. It's going to follow you. There's no escape.
Was there a line from Howard about that? Like, I'm on vacation.
Yeah, I don't remember all the lines, but yeah, words to that effect. She's
But
she tries to get out of being part of the murder investigation by saying, it's not her territory. But basically, the cop chief, I guess, is like, we don't know what we're doing. We don't have murders here. You got to help us. And she, I guess, feels her civic duty stronger than territorial stuff, and decides to go ahead and help. Because it's kind of like, I think that it kind of the point is sort of like that she can't help it. Like even if she told him no, I'm not going to investigate it, her own curiosity would have gotten her to be asking the same questions anyway. She might not have gone back to the bar to interview the bartender, but she still would have talked to her family and stuff about it. So it's like she wouldn't have been able to just let it go. So it kind of just speaks to the fact that she's always a detective, for better or worse, no matter where she goes.
I give it about 5 out of 10 because I was uninterested in the Howard storyline.
I somewhere between 7 and 8 for me, I guess, maybe 7.5. Because, like I said, I think I like it better each time I see it. And last time I probably would have said 7, and this time maybe it's getting closer to 8 because there's a lot of things to appreciate in it, and especially some of the Felton Pimbleton scenes.
Yeah, you like the relationships.
Yeah, I do.
Which is why. Anyhow.
Yeah, I appreciate scenes like, the part where when they go to the guy's house and he's on the porch with the wife and kids and stuff. I mean, I like the realistic way that people act on Homicide. You know, it's not always, people are not good guys, bad guys in every scene. You know, you have scenes where it's like you see this guy that, you know, he's a jerk, he's become a criminal, but he's kind of pathetic. You know, so there's a part of you that actually feels for him because of the situation he's in, the desperation of his situation. So it's like, you know, there's stupid criminals, and then there's people that are just desperate, and they're crimes of passion, you might say. You know, where it's something or crimes of something is just the last straw, and you just can snap in some way, and that's what happened to him. So it's nobody's, nobody's cheering that he's taken down either. Like, I mean, it's like what Howard said to her, you know, he doesn't excuse what he did. You know, he killed him and has to pay the price for that. But it doesn't mean that she's happy about it. One she's happy to put down, you know. So, yeah, there's a lot of different elements of that. And like I said, yeah, as a teen, it was boring, but I liked it more when I had more life experience and could appreciate a little bit more of the what went into it.
Yeah, it's the nuances of the relationship that people notice more when they get older, because actually, in terms of complex plots, children are pretty good at following complex plots. It's the nuance. Yeah. It's the emotional nuances that develop when, like, for instance, the plots are quite complex in Harry Potter. I haven't read the books, folks. I'm not one of them.
I haven't either.
I wouldn't even listen to an audio, but generally, I find that children's stories do have good plots, and the characterization is what gets more sophisticated. I mean, it's like when it's like you have like teenagers doing complicated stuff in school, like, you know, complicated mathematics, and yet in terms of like emotional maturity, a lot of the times it's not there.
Yeah, and that's remember a particular internet forum that I was on that they had a moderator. One of the moderators of the forum was a 13-year-old girl, intelligent, but we had a conflict over something, and I said to, you know, the head administrator, like, you shouldn't have a moderator. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, it may, you know, if it's not like the Barbie forum or something, you know, but it's like, so to her as a person, because, like, it's not that she was unintelligent. She was part of the problem. It was like she's one of those people all had been told all their life, you know, you're so far advanced, you're past all these people, but the emotional maturity can't be at an adult level when you're 13. It just can't be. So there's a disconnect there, to where it actually sort of creates an arrogance based on the advanced intelligence versus emotional maturity. So anyway,
yeah, and just from a mechanical point of view, of once they get into a college situation where they'll be surrounded by a lot, I mean, in terms of, like, as they go, it's like what David Kersey said. He got to a point where he was around all these other people in, you know, advanced computing and PhDs and things like that, where he started comparing himself to these other people that he thought were smarter than him. Yeah, someone who's 13, they don't imagine that there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people out there as smart as them or smarter than them.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing I've tried to get across to Morgan, you know, is because he doesn't like it when I make reference to, you know, his age or being a teenager and things like that in terms of him, certain things he's not able to grasp, you know. But I make the point it's not about, you know, intelligence or even, you know, a maturity as compared to other people your age. Because I think in a lot of ways he's not only smarter but more mature than other kids of his age.
He has
But
typology to help him and you.
what's that?
He has typology to help him and you.
Yeah, but you know, it's just there are things that, you know, 16, 17-year-olds still just isn't going to grasp, no matter how smart or mature they are for their age. It's like you have to live life. You have to get some life experience. You know, just like I'm still not going to fully understand, you know, what elderly people are going through, because I can't fully until I
Right.
get there myself, if I do, you know. But I now at this point in my life, you know, I have that experience all up until this age where I know, you know, my teenage self, you know, wouldn't listen to me either. You know, if I tried to say, here's what's going to happen. Or, I don't even mean about like specific events. I just mean in terms of your perspective. So, but yeah, I mean, as far as TV shows, I mean, some of these ones I've had a long time in between watching and gain new perspective. You know, when I started watching Doctor Who again, and of course, most of the earlier ones I hadn't seen anyway. But even when I got to the ones I had seen, they are obviously from a different perspective as an adult. You know, there were things I could appreciate um, in the stories and in the acting and things like that that I couldn't as much when I was younger. Um, so I had more of a just raw emotional reaction to things as a child. So it was more cut and dried. You know, this thing is scary, or this thing is funny, or this thing is whatever, and there's not as much of a appreciation for the more, like you said, the nuances of things. So.
And also a greater range of things to relate to.
Right.
Especially family things. Right.
So that one picture of G, was that the only picture you took from this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that picture's brilliant. The
No,
way he dressed.
no, I didn't say anything wrong. That I just thought it was funny. That was the only one
Yeah,
you did.
yeah. But like this idea that like SJs can dress SP, for lack of a better term. Um,
Yeah, what it usually is they dress like the SPs did 5 years ago. So it's like once a style becomes familiar enough, then it's okay
yeah,
because it's accepted by then.
it's like Michael Jackson in the early '80s. I don't know why that image comes to mind. I remember Michael Jackson in a leather jacket.
Yeah, it's funny the scene with G smoking the cigar now that I've been listening to the book, because they talk about how Warden, who's the guy that Bolander was based on, is the one that's always annoying people with his cigar smoking. So, and in on Homicide, they really only showed him do that a couple of times, I think. So,
Did any actual smoke come out of his cigar?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, some.
the actual bandana as well, or sweatband.
And the continued realism of Homicide, where he's reading a real newspaper, Baltimore Sun,
What
as
what he
opposed to some shows that would have had a fake newspaper.
what Munch could have said is, I didn't know you dressed like this. I thought you were undercover. And then he could have said
Well,
something. What you think I wear a suit all the while?
that's actually the great thing from Munch, is because some of his attitude towards G is communicated through his facial expressions, because you can tell that he still is giving a certain amount of reverence to G as his boss. He doesn't want to piss him off too much. So there's, even though he wants to talk, there's still some things he wouldn't say. So he may have thought something about what his outfit, but he wasn't going to say anything about that.
Now a younger ENTP would have.
Yeah, well, obviously, Munch has some life experience too, and some work experience with G,
Yeah.
and so he's very complimentary of him. He starts off the conversation with telling him how well prepared he is, and complimenting his saving money by buying the bigger detergent and not the little things like Munch has to get because he isn't prepared. So he's being very he's appealing to the Guardian self-esteem in terms of what he compliments him on. It's just G's doesn't want to talk, so he starts pissing him
Interesting.
off anyway.
That's another socionics thing, I think. Let's have a look. PF. Yes, where actually the ENTP actually looks up a little bit to the ESTJ. Because it's a beneficiary thing. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's kind of natural for most people to do it somewhat because, I mean, like Hersey called the ESTJ the supervisor, and it makes sense as that they tend to be in situations where they naturally take charge of things. And so there is sort of that, yes, there's some rebellion against that also, but there's also, a certain amount of respect that just goes naturally to them for being the ones that are the leaders in different situations. So.
Yeah, you see, socionics, folks, has this weird benefit ring thing for the energy dimension. It's very TI, but it sort of works in. So, for instance, INTPs tend to be. INTPs tend to look highly upon INFJs. In fact, more so than INFJs look upon INTPs. Right then. I think we're out of time.
All right.
Yeah, we're out of thoughts anyway. Oh yes, folks. If you've made it this far, Blake 7. You should know about that. Red Dwarf. Doctor Who is popular enough to promote itself.
And Homicide, which he didn't write on there, but
Yeah, well, they know that because that's the thing that they're watching.
Well, yeah, but you show that during the Blake 7 videos too.
Yeah, Homicide is big enough and popular enough
to
look after itself.
Anyway, yeah, so that has been The Last of the Watermen. We will see you next time for what is the next one called? Oh, A Model Citizen. The next one's called A Model Citizen. So.
Ooh, hope she looks nice.
You might think so. So we'll see you.
Right, here we go. Let's go.